Thank you guys so very much. All the people that left comments on the mirrors video saying that they want to see this figurines video. I want to thank you all very much for all your wonderful comments. And I want to thank all the people that subscribe to my channel. I can't believe I have over 300 subscribers right now. So thank you all very much. I did this one in pink this time, but that goes to show that you could do it in any color that you choose. I also bent it into a heart shape because Valentine's Day is coming up, but I would straighten it back out to the normal shape for the rest of the year. So if you want to see how I did this figurines video, just keep on watching. Materials you would need for this project. You would need to get a roll of this wire. I use the 14 gauge, but you could use the 16 gauge. You'll also need a pliers, one ball of yarn, fabric, scissors, glue. I got these two in a pack at the Dollar Tree. You would need cotton. I got this out of the pillow that I was working on, but you could use cotton balls if you don't have that. Newspapers. You will also need a brush. You'll need some paint. You'll need a measuring tape. You'll also need these command strips to stick it to the back of your figurine. Now these two pieces are optional. I used these on mine, but in the original one, I didn't use anything. So you could use whatever you would like to use. In this one, I used these diamond wrap that I bought from the Dollar Tree. I got this silver diamond flower mesh shape wrap from Amazon. And I'm going to use this in the design as well. But as I said, the original didn't have any of these, so you could do whatever you would like. First, you will need to cut two pieces of wire. One 52 inches and one 90 inches. I am using a dark background so it could contrast against the silver wire. So hopefully you all would be able to see what I'm doing. Now take your 52-inch piece of wire, measure 4 inches and make a bend. Now take your 90-inch piece of wire and repeat the process. Measure 4 inches and make a bend. Now using your 90-inch piece of wire, measure 6 inches from your first bend and make your second bend. Now from your second bend, measure 1 inch and make your third bend. This will form the head of your figurine. Now from your last bend, measure 1 inch and make another bend. I'm just forming the figurine as I go along. Now measure 4 inches from your last bend and make another bend. This will form the hand and also the neck of your figurine. Now measure 1 inch and make another bend. This will form the shoulder of your figurine. Now measure 8 inches and make a bend. This will form the elbow. Now measure 6.5 inches and make another bend. This will form the wrist area. Now measure 1 inch and bend it backwards. Press the end of it really tight so that we have a nice bend at the end. Now we are going to be working backwards. We are going to be bending it back on itself. Now we are going to be straightening the wire, bringing it up to the elbow and making a bend by the elbow. Now we'll tie the 2 pieces of wire together using a string. As you could see in the illustration, we'll tie it up to about that point. In the illustration, the green represents the string. Now for the rest of the tutorial, since I'll be using black thread, I use a cream background so that you could hopefully see what I'm doing. Now as the string begins to get tangled up in the wire, you could cut a good piece of the string, hold it together in your hand, and then wrap the wire around that way so that it's more manageable. Now as we're wrapping coming up, we want to measure 2 inches from the shoulder, and then we want to tie it off at that 2 inches mark. To tie it off, all we'll do is open a hole, and when you open the hole, pass the end of the string through the hole, and we do that about 2 to 3 times, 3 times just for safekeepings. Now we cut the thread, and it's time to join the 2 wires together. Now I've done this figurine in 2 ways. One is the original way, where you put it behind the mirror or behind something. Then I did it where you could just hang it on the wall and you don't have to put it behind anything. Now the first one on the left is the original way, where you leave the 4 inches on and then you stick that in the back of the mirror or in the back of whatever you want to put it behind. And the second way, you cut off 3 inches and leave 1 inch so that the 2 hands look the same, and then you could stick that up on your wall without putting it behind anything. So the first option, if you want to put it behind a mirror, you don't have to cut off 3 inches like I'm going to do now. But if you want to leave it on its own, then you'll cut off the 3 inches. And that's the only difference between the 2 figurines that it would be having. Everything else you'll be doing the same. Now this is where you cut off the 3 inches if you're going to leave it on its own. Now as I said before, if you're going to put it behind the mirror, you leave this piece on. But if you're going to have it stand on its own, you cut off this piece right here. Now measure 1 inch from the bend and cut it on the 1 inch mark. Now measure the other piece of wire and do the same. Measure 1 inch and cut it on the 1 inch mark. Now it's time to join the 2 pieces of wire together to form the figurine. Now the process here would be the same whether you're making the one that goes behind or the one that stands on its own. You just take your piece of thread and start wrapping the 2 pieces together. For the people that has the one that stands on its own, they would just be wrapping 1 inch. But for the people that's doing it and putting it behind anything, whether it's your mirror project or anything else, then you would have to wrap 4 inches like I'm wrapping here. Now when you get to the head, you just jump over to the other side and keep on wrapping. After a while your thread would start to tangle, so I suggest you cut off a good length, hold it in your hand and then use it that way so that you have control of the thread. Now when you get about an inch long from the neck, you would start making it wider so that it forms a nice curve around the neck area, and then continue wrapping the thread. Make sure not to pull the thread tightly around the neck so that it closes the wire in, but keep it nice and loose so that it would form a nice gradient going down to the neck. Now just cut the thread and tie it off. Now it's time to form the body. Now this is not an exact science. You could make your body however you would like it to be. You could make it big, you could make it smaller. It depends on what you would like. If you want to have an idea of the measurements that I used, the purple line represents where I placed the measurements. So from the neck to the waist, I measured about 3.5 inches. I measured about 1 inch by the waist, about 2.5 inch by the hips, measurement from the waist to the widest point of the hips is about 3.5 inches. Now as you could see, I played around with it for quite a while until I got the shape that I liked and I wanted. So you just do the same, keep playing around with it. Even if you use the measurements that I gave, play around with it still and see what you like and what you want it to be. Now for those of you that is going to use it behind the mirror, this is a good time for you to pick up a mirror and place the figurine behind it and then adjust the figurine to suit the mirror. And I'm pretending here that I have the both mirrors, and the first mirror is giving me an idea where the other mirror would be. So I'm just adjusting the figurine to suit, bearing in mind that I'll have 2 mirrors here instead of 1. After you get it exactly where you want it, you could start wrapping the wire about where you see me doing it in the video, all the way to the end, and tie it off. And this should be how it looks when you tie it off. Now grab 3 cotton balls and pull them apart. Take your glue and put it onto the cotton or padding like I'm doing here, and we're going to mix it well into the cotton or padding, whichever one you choose. Once we're done with that, we're going to form it onto the wire so that we could form the shoulder area. We only have to concentrate on the shoulders and the head, since that would be exposed in our figurine. Now all you have to do is play around with the cotton until it forms the shape that you want. We are going to be wrapping this with newspaper after we are finished, so we just want to have a nice smooth texture, as smooth as we can, for it to work off of. Now at this section I would have cut the video, but I want to make sure that you all see the way that I did the wrapping so that you have an idea how to get the cotton onto the wire. Now we are going to be working with the head. Pull off a piece of your cotton ball or batting, form it into an oval shape. We'll insert it into the space for the head. Then we'll take a piece of the cotton or batting and wrap it around the rest of the wire so that it stays on the head. Once it's attached to the head, go ahead and shape it and make sure that all the wire is covered at the top of the head so that it has a nice smooth surface to put the newspaper. Now you want to cut some 1/4 inch strips of newspaper, and we're going to use that to wrap the figurine. Now place a little bit of glue at the top of the newspaper, and then we're going to wrap that from the top, and we're going to do it at a diagonal. We want to make sure that it stays nice and smooth, so we'll just wrap it in little sections. When you get to the bend, just tear the newspaper and put some glue, hold it together, and continue wrapping. We want to make sure that we have no wrinkles, so we want to do it one bend at a time. So from there you just join another piece of newspaper and we keep on wrapping. We'll do that for the 2 arms. Now at this point, I'm just following the guide of the newspaper. I'm crisscrossing it around the head like this because this would give the smoothest results. Then I'm just going down the neck of the figurine. Afterwards, I'll come back in with smaller newspaper and fill in the head area where we've missed. And we'll just do that straight through the whole rest of the figurine to get the whole top of the figurine covered. We're only studying about covering the head, the arms, and where we place the cotton balls. Now I'm just going around and snipping in any raised areas, putting some glue and gluing them down flat. And anywhere that you have these raised areas, just snip them and glue them down to make sure you have a nice smooth surface. Now I'm just ripping some bigger pieces and using those to smoothen the surface of the figurine. The more pieces you put onto the figurine, the stronger it would be. The more you work on this part and this process, the better it would be. So take your time and make sure that you have this as smooth as possible. Use as much newspaper as you need to get this process right. Now before we start painting, I want to show you where I put some cotton into the middle of where the hip area is, just to build up the thickness around that area. Now you could put as much as you want to make it as thick as you want. And when you're finished with that, we'll start painting. I'm using water-based paint here, but it would be better if you use oil-based paint. I didn't have any. I got this from the Dollar Tree. And as you would see later on in the video, it came off on my fabric. So either be careful when you place the fabric onto the figurine or use oil-based paint, because it would transfer onto your fabric if you use the water-based paint. After you're done painting, we'll just sit and let that dry. When it's dry, we'll come back and work on the fabric side.